Hi folks, HR Funk here. Recently I've had some questions from some of you, and you're inquiring about what all actually goes into operating a YouTube channel. And I know some of you out there already have your own channels you've been working on for a while. And from my perspective, after having been on YouTube for just about a decade, in fact this fall will make 10 years since I've had my YouTube channel, I've got some thoughts that I can throw out there that hopefully will be helpful. Now, I'm not going to be talking about producing YouTube videos. In fact, I made a video about that a couple of years ago, and not much has changed in the actual production of videos. But what I'm going to be talking about now is actually managing the channel and working with YouTube to whatever degree you can actually work with YouTube, and a little bit about how this all actually goes together for someone who has had a channel for a while and has monetized videos and is trying to at least recoup some of the costs that go into producing these videos. And this is going to be mostly me talking in this video, but I thought some of you might find this interesting. I don't think I'm going to use this particular video for a Saturday premiere or even a midweek update. This is going to be a standalone video that I'm probably going to upload as soon as I get done recording it, and I hope some of you find it to be helpful. So the first thing I'll tell you is that YouTube has changed over the years. In the early days, YouTube was not much more than just a repository for people's home movies, and they would take a video of whatever, their trip to the amusement park or their day at the range or whatever, and they would post it on YouTube, and then all of their friends could go to YouTube and watch those videos. Eventually, somewhere along the line, somebody figured out that you could upload more serious content, educational content, informative content, entertaining content, all of that to YouTube, and people would go there for that content, not just to watch whatever the last outing was that the family went on. So when I first started watching YouTube back in the early days, and this was back in the early 2000s, most of the firearm content was that home movie type of content. It was people just taking video of themselves at the range, them and their friends having a good time and all of that. But there were a few channels back then that were trying to upload serious content, either firearms reviews or their thoughts on firearms training or use of defensive firearms or even sport use of firearms. So that was starting to pick up momentum back around 2010 or so. But again, it has changed over the years. And one of the things you have to wrap your mind around with YouTube is that YouTube as an entity changes over time, and your audience expectations changes over time as well. So you have to stay in tune to that. You really have to be mindful of the content you're uploading, and something that was really successful several years ago might not get quite as much attention these days, just depending upon the changes in your audience, changes in YouTube, etc. The other thing I want to tell you right here at the beginning is that if you are uploading firearms content, YouTube doesn't like you, if you haven't already figured that out. Google, the parent company of YouTube, and YouTube itself are part of big tech, and big tech tends to be very left-leaning. So if you've not figured that out, they really don't want firearms content. They tolerate it to some degree because it does make them some amount of money. But if they could reduce the number of firearms channels to just a small number that earns them the most money, that would be perfectly acceptable to YouTube/Google. And again, the more you understand that and the more you accept that, the less frustration you're going to experience trying to manage your YouTube channel. And I have to tell you, it can be very, very frustrating. In fact, I'm thinking about titling this particular video, "Managing a YouTube Firearms Channel Sucks," because there are days that it absolutely does. So I can only speak for myself, but I have a feeling a lot of people on YouTube today, in fact, some of the people with very large channels, probably started out similar to the way that I did. You start uploading content to YouTube as a hobby. And for myself, as a firearms instructor and a firearms enthusiast, I was basically just putting content up there that was interesting to me and I thought might be entertaining and maybe a little bit informative to anyone who watched it. And that lasted for a few years. And in those first few years, I was not even monetizing my videos. I was just happy to upload something, be able to sit down with my phone or in front of my computer screen and see something that I uploaded. And hey, lo and behold, other people seem to enjoy watching it too. So that was cool. So you tend to notice that your subscriber numbers grow over time, or at least if you're fortunate, they do. And all of a sudden, you start trying to make your content a little bit more serious, because now you've got people that are actually watching and they're hoping to learn something from what you're posting, or at very least be entertained by it. And I think when that happens and when you start becoming more serious about your content that you're uploading, and for me, that was probably somewhere around the 3-year mark, maybe 3.5-year mark, that's when things start to change a little bit, because as you start trying to improve your content and improve your videos and put forth something that's going to be more meaningful to your subscribers who are watching, you start to notice over time, and not over a long period of time, that your phone is ringing. And those are the kind of things that actually happen when you're recording a YouTube video. And of course, that was a phone call from Los Angeles, California. I'm in Ohio, so I didn't even bother to answer it. Maybe it was somebody calling from Hollywood. Maybe that was my big break. But anyway, you start noticing over a period of time that your costs to produce your content are going up. So now you have a decision to make. Am I going to continue to try to, first off, upload any content at all? Am I going to continue having a YouTube channel and trying to produce content that my subscribers are going to enjoy, or not? And I've seen a lot of channels over the years that have faded away. When I think back in that early, 2010 to 2015 area, going back 6, 7, 8 years or however far, there are some channels that existed back then and were fairly successful back then that no longer exist, or at very least are no longer uploading content. And I think the reason for that is twofold. First, some people just become so frustrated with dealing with YouTube and trying to negotiate the minefield that is the YouTube rules and regulations and restrictions, and I'll talk about that before long. And other people, I think, have gotten to the point where it becomes work and they're shelling out a lot of money to do what they're doing, and they just one day wake up and think, I'm not going to do it anymore. It's not worth it. For those of us that are still trying to continue on, you start looking for ways to recoup some of the costs that are going into producing your videos. And this is where managing the YouTube channel starts to become a little bit more of a business. And I am not a business mastermind. Some of you own your own businesses and you know more about operating a business than I ever will. I worked in the government sector my entire life. But when you start thinking of your channel as a business and you start thinking about, I need to try to recover some of the costs that I'm shelling out to produce these videos, the first thing that I think everyone looks to is monetizing their videos. And I'll talk about what goes into monetizing a video now. So if you're not familiar with it, the YouTube Partner Program is the means to monetize videos on YouTube. And the way it works is you have to have a minimum number of subscribers, and I believe it is 20,000 subscribers at this point to monetize your videos. And I could be wrong about that. I haven't looked at it for a while. It's been a long time ago since I had to do that. But you join the YouTube Partner Program, and when you upload a video, you, through the upload process, indicate that you want that video to be monetized. When that happens, if the video is monetized, YouTube places advertisements on that video, and nowadays they actually place advertisements if the video is long enough at various places within the video. Those advertisements are how YouTube makes money. YouTube, just like TV networks, charge the advertiser or the business that is placing the advertisement on the video a certain amount of money to place the ads there for anyone to see, and then part of that money, a small amount of the money that is paid to YouTube, comes back to the content creator in the form of ad revenue. It's not a tremendous amount of money, and it's based on the number of views that that video receives. Right now, I'm getting about $4.50 for every 1,000 views my videos get. So if I upload a video and it gets 10,000 views, I'll make about $45, $45, $50, something like that on that particular video for the span of time that it got the 10,000 views. But if videos don't get that many views, or if the amount that YouTube is receiving / paying out for the ads on that particular video fluctuates, then I might receive a little bit more, a little bit less, just depending on exactly what the specifics are for the ads on that video. And I have no control over that whatsoever. So if I place a video on YouTube and they monetize it, and there's a ad for something that comes up that you don't care for, or you don't like that ad that is showing on my video, that's not me. I'm not choosing the product. I'm not placing the advertisement on there. That is entirely controlled by YouTube. They also control exactly how many ads appear in the video. There's a way that I can choose where the in-video ads appear. I can adjust the time if I want to, one way or the other, but I can't really do away with them appearing. That again is just set by YouTube. Now, it might sound like that's a pretty good gig. You get about 45, 50 bucks for 10,000 views. But again, you have to weigh that against the costs for producing the video. So if I go out and purchase a new firearm to review, and again, I purchase my own firearms with very, very few exceptions. The videos that you see for firearms reviews are firearms that I purchased. Now, I have had a few loaned to me by friends, and in very rare instances, I've had about 3 or 4 firearms that have been sent to me by companies asking me to review those firearms during the 10 years that I've had my channel. But the vast majority of firearms that you see appearing on my channel are firearms that I've paid for. So, for example, when I purchased my Colt 1911 Competition Series pistol back a couple of months ago, I shelled out about $1,200 for that particular firearm. The last time I looked at that particular video, it has had about 5,000, 6,000 views, something like that. So it's made about $25. So you can see that still the amount that I'm paying out is nowhere, excuse me, extremely exceeds the amount that that video has made. But the ad revenue is collective, or it's compounded. So it's based on the number of views for all of my videos back over the time that I've had my YouTube channel. So my channel as a channel gets a certain number of views on all of my videos each month. And each one of those videos earns a certain amount of money, and all of that is computed, and that's what I actually receive from month to month from Google in the form of ad revenue. And it actually hits a specific bank account automatically on about the 22nd or 23rd of every month. That's when the YouTube money comes in. My channel at this point is not really making enough to sustain itself. If I figured in my time for producing videos and editing videos and everything else, there is no way in the world that it would make enough to sustain that. It is more or less paying for the ammunition that I'm shooting, depending on how much ammunition costs at any given time. It's kind of sort of paying for the firearms that you see, although there's a lot of times that when you don't see a firearm anymore, it's because I've traded that firearm in purchasing a new firearm for you to be able to see. So that still goes on. I'm not getting wealthy on YouTube, suffice to say. There are some people out there who are making a very good living specifically on YouTube. When you look at some of the very large channels that have a lot of videos and a lot of subscribers, they are making their living on YouTube. And there are some channels that are not firearms related that are making a lot of money in ad revenue coming from YouTube. But generally speaking, the firearms channels that are about the size of mine are not really self-sustaining. I think probably when you get up somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000 subscribers, 200,000 subscribers, something like that, they might be getting into that neighborhood. But you run into some issues with YouTube where subscribers don't necessarily equal views. And what happens is you'll have a certain number of subscribers. For my channel, I'm getting close to 50,000 subscribers. And believe me, I appreciate each and every one of you. I thank you for watching the videos. I thank you for the comments and everything else. But YouTube decides basically how much of a fan each subscriber is, and they decide whether or not they're going to send out a notice for a new video to each one of the subscribers to let them know you've uploaded a new video, depending on how loyal they are to all of the videos that come out. So of my 50,000 or nearly 50,000 subscribers, there's only a small percentage that get a notice every single time I upload a video. There are a huge majority that get a notice every once in a while, or they get no notice at all. So if you are seeing this video and you think, wow, I haven't gotten a notice for a long time, go back to my channel and take a look. There are probably a lot of videos that have been uploaded since the last time you got a notice that you just don't even know about. And there are people in the larger YouTube community who never know when I upload a video. They have no idea who I even am because they never get a notice. It never comes up in their suggested videos. It never comes up in the automatic viewing that takes place where, and I can't think right off the top of my head what this is called, where it goes from one video automatically to the next video to the next video on YouTube. They just never get that because they've never watched one of my videos, and they are not, in YouTube's opinion, fans of my videos. So that's one of the obstacles you run into, and that's one of the frustrations you can have with YouTube. It seems like to me, if I've got whatever I have as of today, 46,800 and some subscribers, that all of them should get a notice, and then they can choose whether or not that's a video that's interesting to them. But that's not the way YouTube works. The other thing you run into, especially with firearms content, are what YouTube calls their ad-friendly guidelines. And this is where you talk about, or you hear people on YouTube talk about their videos have been demonetized. YouTube has a long list of fairly vague rules, and when you look at them, and all I can do is tell you to go there and look at those ad-friendly guidelines for yourself, because they are ambiguous, they are applied randomly. My video that's going to go live in a couple of days on Saturday, my next Saturday premiere, was demonetized. And I'm going to be talking about a rifle scope, an optic, in that video. And for the life of me, the ad-friendly rule that they cite for demonetizing that video doesn't seem to make any sense. I look at it, and none of the things that they've got listed in there is applicable to the video that I uploaded. But there's no way. I've already gone through the appeals process, where they demonetized it to begin with. I went back and said, no, I want somebody to take a look at this. Theoretically, a human being looked at it and said, nope, it violates this rule. The best guess I can come up with is something in that rule that they cited talked about not showing firearms with infrared sights. The optic that I'm reviewing has red illumination, has an illuminated reticle, so you can make it either red or green. And I think somebody who doesn't know anything about firearms or optics or anything else equates a red illuminated reticle with an infrared sight, which of course it's not. They're two different things. That's the only thing I can think of for why they demonetized the video. But again, there's no recourse. They've demonetized it. That's it. The end. So that video, and it's not accurate to say it's demonetized. It's not acceptable for all advertisers, which really is the kiss of death for that video. What that means is, if there are advertisers out there somewhere that are willing to place ads on videos that are a little bit more controversial, and I can't think of much less controversial in the firearms world than a rifle scope. Anyway, if advertisers are willing to, they can place ads on there, but the amount of ad revenue that comes in on those restricted videos is so infinitesimal. If I get 10,000 views on a video that has that ad restriction, it'll earn literally like $1.50 or something like that. It's pennies on the dollar compared to what the non-restricted videos earn. That is a constant battle that you'd have with YouTube, trying to keep your videos monetized, trying to convince them that the content is not hateful, hurtful, dangerous, or whatever else. Now, I could upload a video demonstrating how to repair the brakes on a car. I'm not a mechanic. I don't know anything about repairing brakes. I could make a video that completely showed the wrong way to do it, and people could be crashing their cars out there right and left after watching the video that I produced on repairing the brakes on your car. And that would be fine. That would be a monetized video. But if I show anything in the firearms world that they deem to be controversial, that video gets restricted and it earns very, very little ad revenue. And again, that is extremely, extremely frustrating. So if that's not enough to make you start banging your head against the wall, there's something else that you run into with trying to get views, which again equal ad revenue on YouTube. And this is something that it's taken me a long time to figure out. If you ever notice with YouTube, if you've been watching it for a while, you will get suggested videos from certain content creators over and over and over. Or if you search for anything, particularly anything firearms related, there's a certain group of content creators that usually come up near the top of the list when you perform that search. Now you can adjust the parameters of your search and get different results, but generally if you just put in whatever, 1911A1, there's going to be a certain number of videos that come up, and a lot of times you'll see the same content creators over and over, and they tend to be the creators with the largest channels. This is speculation on my part, but I think what is going on is those channels have the greatest number of subscribers, and therefore when the companies place their ads or they contract with YouTube or Google to have ads on videos, they want to have the greatest potential for that ad to get a lot of views. So obviously they want those ads placed on videos from channels that have the greatest number of subscribers, or at least get the greatest number of views, because that's going to earn YouTube/Google the most money. So it's in their best interest to make sure that they are continuing to put videos from those particular channels out in front for everyone to see, because they obviously want to maximize their profits. So with a channel like mine that doesn't have that many subscribers, they're not going to push my content nearly as hard as they will some of those others. And if you put if you perform a search rather on something that I have recorded a video on, a lot of times it comes up a lot farther down that list. And that really bothered me for a while, because I would watch some of the videos that would be at the top of the list and I would think, my video is at least that good, and maybe my information is a little bit better, or my review is a little bit more thorough, or whatever, than some of the things higher up the list. None of that matters. It doesn't matter to YouTube/Google how good your video is. It doesn't matter to them how great your presentation is. None of that matters. All that matters is how much money are they going to make off of ads placed on a specific video. And if they think another video is going to make them more money, it doesn't matter if the content's not that great, or it doesn't matter if the presentation is not that great. All that matters is it's going to make them the greatest amount of ad revenue. So that's another thing that it took me a long time to wrap my mind around, and I think at this point I've kind of got it figured out. And this comes back to what's called the YouTube algorithm. And you hear people talk all the time about the algorithm. The algorithm is what decides what videos are going to be placed in what order and what are going to get the greatest number of notices that go out, or the greatest number of what YouTube calls impressions, which is where they flash up a thumbnail in one way or another to give someone an opportunity to watch that video and then see whether or not they do. Another thing to keep in mind with ad revenue is anything that you do receive from YouTube or from Google is before tax. So when you hear me talk about, a video that gets 10,000 views makes $45 or $50. Actually, it doesn't because I have to claim that on my taxes during the year, and of course I'm going to receive some amount less after I pay my taxes for the amount of money that I'm making. There's no free lunch there. There's no way. You always hear that the saying that nothing's certain but death and taxes definitely apply to anything you earn from YouTube. So what eventually starts to happen with a lot of us when we figure out that we're probably not going to get wealthy, or maybe not even make the amount of money we think we need to on ad revenue from YouTube, is people start to look at alternate funding sources. And you look at things like Patreon. The one that I have availed myself of is part of YouTube, and that's YouTube channel memberships, where people pay a subscription rate, a monthly subscription rate to the channel to help with the production costs. And I've got about 50 channel members right now. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you who are channel members. Again, you have no idea how much I appreciate that. The fact that anyone would actually pay money to me to help produce my content it blows my mind. It's just tremendous. Thank you to all my members. But that's one way. A lot of people go to Patreon, and now there are some alternatives to Patreon out there where it's the same idea. People pay a certain amount of money to that entity, and that goes back to the content creator to help offset the cost of producing the videos. So that's great as well. There are also some outside corporate interests, I can't talk today for some reason, who might become interested in your channel. You hear me talk at the end of my videos about Optics Planet, and I've explained that program many times. I don't actually get paid anything from Optics Planet, but I can get gear from Optics Planet to review, and I don't have to pay for it. So that's the big thing, and they base that on how many people go to Optics Planet and use my discount code there, so they're able to basically figure out how much value my channel is to their business. And the more valuable my channel is, the higher the cost of the items I can get for review. That's in a nutshell the way the Optics Planet thing works. A lot of people also start looking at some sort of merchandising. They'll be selling t-shirts, they'll be selling patches, they'll be selling hats, they'll be selling whatever. And that's another thing people do. By the way, the t-shirts you hear me mention at the end of mine are really more to help my friend Nathan, who has the t-shirt business. I'm not making a great deal off of that, so that's nothing. But some people make quite a bit on their merchandise. And occasionally you'll see people that have firearms channels who actually have an agreement where they are advertising for some particular product during their videos, and I would assume they are being paid something from the company that has produced that advertisement for the endorsement. So that happens as well. So there are alternate ways to make money with your YouTube channel. You have to be a little careful though, because when you start, particularly with the paid advertisements, or if you start accepting certain things coming in, there is the expectation that the review of a product or what you say about that product is going to be positive. A couple of years ago, I had some firearms that this was some of the few that were sent to me by advertisers for review, and during the course of my review I made some comments about those firearms that I don't think sat real well with the advertisers, but I was being truthful. I was, as always with my viewers, my first responsibility is always to my viewers, and to make sure that I am giving you the best, most forthright, honest information that I can. And promptly that particular advertising entity never sent me another firearm to review, which is what you run into. I've got some people like the folks from Hilux Optics that I get along with well. I think they're great people. They have sent me some optics to review, and that's tremendous, but I am at liberty to review them perfectly honestly. Now, I suppose if I really had one that I didn't like and I trashed it, they might be upset with me, but so far that's never been the case. Same thing with Optics Planet. I'm at liberty to, when they send me a piece of gear, I can review it however I want to. I can say whatever I want to about it and give you my honest opinion. Optics Planet doesn't have any expectation because they are simply selling that product for another company. So I don't have any strings attached there. But there are other companies out there, and there are some folks on YouTube who very definitely the expectation is that they are going to be giving that product or giving the endorsement of that product a very positive connotation, because otherwise there's not going to be any money coming in from that other entity to help offset their YouTube video costs. So again, there is a slippery slope that people have to be aware of when you get into these alternate funding sources, and particularly when you start looking at paid endorsements or paid advertisements or whatever. So all of this brings me to my final topic, which is growing a YouTube channel. You hear people talk about that pretty frequently. They're trying to grow their channel. And the reason behind that is because they're trying to boost that number of subscribers. They're trying to become one of the channels that YouTube is placing more and more of those ads on and putting toward the top of the suggested videos and sending out the most impressions and everything else. And the idea of growing a channel basically means that you are attracting a greater and greater audience, which typically is reflected by the subscriber numbers. What I'll say about growing a channel is don't try to grow your channel. Now that sounds counterintuitive and you're probably thinking, why would I ever say that? I think a mistake that a lot of people make is they look at the really successful channels on YouTube and they try to emulate, or worse yet, imitate what other YouTube content creators are doing. And what happens is they end up coming off as someone who's trying to emulate or imitate another content creator. And you'll see that sometimes. You'll hear people use the same phrases, they'll say the same things. And I actually made this mistake the other day. I recorded a video, and through the course of the video I said something, and when I was recording it I didn't think any big deal. I just made a statement. But when I heard myself say it in the video later on, I thought, oh no, that sounds just like another content creator. And sure enough, in the comments section to that video, some of you called me out on that and said, hey, that sounds like something. Yes, it did. I wasn't thinking when I said that. And the reason that I throw that out there is because you really need to find your own audience. And in order to do that, you need to be yourself. You need to kind of find something unique about your presentation or your take on things or whatever that separates you from what I call the noise. And sometimes I also call this the YouTube echo chamber, where everything on YouTube sounds the same, it looks the same, it's basically the same video over and over and over. One of the things I do with my channel intentionally is I try to vary the content. You know, one time I might have a precision rifle, the next time I might have a black powder firearm, the next time I might have a very new, up-to-date semi-automatic handgun. Next time I might be doing a CCW video. Next time I might be talking about some legal issue or aspect having to do with firearms. But I really try to vary my content so it's not the same video over and over and over. And there are some channels out there that have literally been making the same video for the last 20 years. And some of them actually have a lot of subscribers, but I try not to do that. If you can come up with something unique, and I'll give you a small example, and I try not to overdo this because this is something that can become stale pretty quickly. In my firearms reviews, I started setting up little water bottles and shooting at them just for a reactive target, just to have something that I was shooting that people could see, you know, water splash and everything else. I started calling them water bottle desperados one day just to give them some personality. And I started doing a little setup with it where I talk about, you know, the water bottle desperados are back in town. And it felt kind of silly when I started doing that, but people seem to like it. And if I don't have the desperados in the videos for a while, people say, hey, where's the desperados? We miss them. So then I was in a craft store one day and I found some little cowboy hats. And I thought, what the heck? So I bought the little cowboy hats. Now I put the cowboy hats on the water bottle desperados. And people like that. The tack shot is another one like that. You know, the tack shot really is just, it's not so much of a comment on the firearm that I'm reviewing as much as whether or not I can actually zap that thing on a given day. But people seem to like that. And they, you know, people will talk about, I was holding my breath, or, I cheered when you hit the tack. So great, I throw it in there. It's my own little unique content that I don't think anybody else is quite doing the same way. For my audience, it's something that you all get to enjoy. It's something we have. And my audience over the years, when I talk about finding your audience, my audience has grown. And I am so proud of my audience on YouTube. I say frequently that I feel like I have the best viewers on YouTube, because I've gotten to know so many of you. In the comments, the things that people say, the way they phrase things, in the Saturday morning premiere videos, and that's another thing I've done, where I set up my premieres where I can be part of that, I can interact with my audience, and really try to make that connection and establish that relationship where we're all part of a community, if you will. And we have that sense of community, that sense of relationship with each other. I don't think of myself as the captain of the ship or the master of the circus or whatever. I think of myself more like the tour guide. I choose the direction we're going and the destination we're ultimately going to see on a given day. But you all are the ones who make the trip enjoyable. You're the ones that come along and make the comments and make the suggestions and all of that. So we're all part of it. And that's what I like about my channel. And I don't know how many other channels out there are like that. I don't know, if you talk to some of the folks from the other channels, I have to believe some of them are so big that they don't really have that connection. They feel like they've lost that connection maybe along the way with their viewers. And that's also part of the reason I really try to respond to a great number of the comments that I get that come in on the videos, so that people know that I'm reading them, I'm responding to them, I'm trying to be responsive to the things that they think and the things that they suggest and all that. And the vast, vast majority of the comments that come in, I do respond to. Now, I've gotten to the point with some of them where there's really not much I can say one way or the other, where I'll just hit the heart button. And I use that mainly as an indication that, I read the comment, thank you very much. It might not even mean that I necessarily agree with that comment 100% or whatever. Just, love the comment, thank you very much. Kind of like with Rush Limbaugh's show, where he used to talk about people call in and say, dittos, Rush. That didn't mean they agreed with everything Rush said. That just meant that they liked the show, they liked the host, et cetera, et cetera. I kind of use my heart, clicking on the heart icon the same way. So if you see that on a video, that's what it means. Thanks for the comment. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. But I think establishing yourself as an individual on YouTube really goes a long way toward finding that audience. Probably my most recent thing that I've done along those lines has only been in the last couple of years, where I've started doing the live streams. And I really approach the live streams. I've gotten to the point where I approach it kind of like, again, I hate to use another radio reference, but kind of like those old radio shows where you would be listening to them on the drive to work in the morning. There was always the DJ on there, or the group of DJs that were having a good time. They were telling jokes. People were calling in, interacting with the DJs. They were making comments and suggestions. And sometimes they would deal with, topical issues of the day or what have you. But it was mostly fun, and that's what I try to do with the live streams. And again, that's a newer thing that I've done with my channel, again, to try to reinforce that connection with my audience. One thing that I get dinged on sometimes is being political. People will say, oh, you leave the politics out of it, just stick to the guns, this and that. And there's a well-known YouTube content creator who has a comment that he's made a lot of times, where he says, if you are a firearms owner, and I would expand that to if you are a firearms enthusiast, you are political. And I agree with that. I don't think you can be a firearms owner and just be completely apolitical. If so, you're dancing with the devil, basically. If you're just going to leave everything out there to the random whimsy of political fate and hope for the best, I think you're probably going to end up wishing you hadn't. I've made a few videos over the years that have a very political oriented content. In fact, my most successful video, my most viewed video that I've ever uploaded, has well over 500,000 views, and that was very much a political comment that I was making in that video, and I didn't monetize that video. And it's funny because the times that I've made political statements in my videos have been videos that I've not monetized, and the reason is because those videos are about making a point. They're not about making money. Now, had I monetized that, the one that's up over 500,000, it's actually 650,000 views, something like that. Had I monetized that video, I would have made a bundle of money on that. Of course, I had to pay taxes on it. But it wasn't about making money. Again, it was about making a statement. And when you see my videos come up, if they have a political connotation, a strong political connotation, there's a good chance that that video is not monetized. That's just me. I'm not saying that you should do the same thing, but for me personally, when I get into those situations where I feel really strongly about something and I want to make a political point, I don't monetize those videos. So if you've stuck with me all the way to the end of this video, and we are finally at the end, those are my thoughts on managing a YouTube gun channel. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. And until next time, good shooting. And in the next time, I will be doing some shooting, hopefully, in the video. Thanks again, folks. Take care. See you next time.